All right, what's up, guys? My name is Raymond On. I'm the host of the Success Spotlight. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Nicholas Bailey. He's the CEO and founder of the Billion Dollar Brotherhood, which is a business that helps other businessmen succeed in their health, wealth, and relationships. And during this time of the quarantine, Nick has been able to help a lot of businessmen pivot their businesses during the quarantine so that they can actually make more profit. And a lot of his business is focused on live events and online coaching education. So he's been able to help a lot of businesses pivot. So I'd like to welcome Nicholas Bailey onto the show.
What's up, Raymond? Good
Hey,
to see you,
Nick.
man. I really appreciate you first putting this whole thing on. And yeah, it's been a hard time for everyone. 100% of businesses have been impacted. 100% of people have been impacted. It just looks different for every single person. Yet 100% of us are in some type of pivot and in some type of transition right now. And to be educated, which is so smart to do. So anyone listening right now, getting educated is number one key. No one can take away your education. No one can take away what you know. No one can take away who you know. And those are the number one investments to make right now.
Awesome. And so, what do you think businesses can do to pivot during this time of the quarantine, or how have you helped businesses pivot
Yeah, it's a really
during
good
this time?
question. So everyone's a little bit different, like I talked about. Yet one of the things that reigns true for every single person is that there's things that you can do inside of your business, no matter what industry you're in quarantine, that you normally couldn't do. Right? There's a lot of people who own restaurants. Restaurants can't have people dine in right now. They can do takeout. They can work on educating the market on how they can maybe release some of their recipes, as you saw Disney did with some of their Frosties. They released the recipe of the Frosty for people to do at home. That builds rapport, that builds focus on Disney. And ask yourself, what are the things that I can do right now? If I can't capitalize on sales, if I can't capitalize on marketing right now, what are the things that I can do to build the infrastructure for my business so I come back stronger, ready to rock? And then for the people that right now you can actually sell things, you can market things right now, what are the ways that you can double down in this time engagement? And what I mean by attention isn't just attention in itself, right? If someone were to take off all their clothes and run down the street, they'd have attention. Yet it just wouldn't be that effective of attention. So one of the biggest things right now is how can you serve capacity than everyone else in your marketplace? Think about it. Like, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm getting one tomorrow, hopefully. Yet my barber and most barbers out there right now are just taking time off, waiting for things to come back. If a barber were to serve the general local population right now, showing tutorials, making online content, serving people where they're at, what would happen is that all the attention would be on them, and they would now be the person that people know, who they like, and definitely who they trust because they've served him. And now all of a sudden he's going to exponentially grow, while other people will not grow because they just sat on their hands during this time.
Hmm. So, where do you recommend people to upload their content and their trainings at?
Yeah, it's a great question. Where would you upload your content, your trainings? And one of the first things I always go to is most people say, Nicholas, what type of platform should I be on? Should I be on Instagram? Should I be on Facebook? Should I start a podcast? Should I do YouTube? Should I create another social media channel on a free website? Whatever it is. And the biggest thing that I found is that first off, these platforms are free. And if these platforms are free, you should use them. And if you should use them, it just depends on which one do you want to focus on. Yet don't be afraid of actually creating content on every single platform by using the content that you create for one native platform. Now, you should probably go out there and create specific content for every platform. What you do on YouTube may be different than on Instagram. Yet, if that's keeping you from actually producing content on the platform, content is always going to be more specific and more impactful than the layout. Meaning that I could have a better camera right now. I may be able to have a better microphone, yet the microphone and the camera and the shape of the video and the awesome captions are not going to be the thing that makes the video impactful. It may help a video be more impactful, but if the content is really good, that's going to be something that shines above everything else. And one of the ways to do that right now is through telling specific stories that connect with your audience. I think right now more than ever, to not be another person in your industry that's just trying to sell a good or a commodity. They say that facts tell and stories sell. And if they say it, they're always right. But if you say it, you could be wrong. And right now is a time to be able to use storytelling, get people behind the mission and vision for your company, get people enrolled in what you're doing, where they're buying into a company, they're buying into the experience. They're not just buying into a good or a service, which will make them go to someone else and pay less money. And you'll never be able to compete with the race to the bottom of who has the cheapest price good, because there's only one person that can own that spot, and it's the person that's willing to lose the most amount of money. And most of us are in business because we want to churn a profit. And we're not going to be able to do that as small business owners if we're trying to compete with these huge companies that can buy massive amounts of inventory for things, decrease their prices because they have venture capital. It's time that we serve people to a higher capacity so people are willing to invest more for your good or service. You're able to over provide, over exceed their expectations, and be able to reach your
Mm,
marketplace. And right now, again, I'd be on every single platform. Yet the biggest thing that I would do is I wouldn't continue to do things the way that you've always done it. Every single business has 5 core functions. You can write this down really quick. You got lead generation, lead nurture. How do you, after they know you, how do you communicate? Conversion, the sales process, deliverable, what's the product or service, and then retention, resell, upsell. People that stay with you buy another good. And if that's the way that a whole business profits, you've been doing things to be able to run your business in each one of those categories up to this point. And now it's time to just focus on the ones that work in this season and not focus on what you can't do in the business, which is a common thing I'm seeing right now. I can't go shake hands, and that's how I used to do business. Well, okay, but complaining about it is not going to get you one step further. So it's time to focus on
mm,
what we can do, which is maybe a
mm.
virtual meeting like this. Maybe it's a virtual coffee date. Maybe it's a virtual group meeting. And it's time to adapt to the times and do what we can do, not focus on what we can't.
Awesome. And so for I know a lot of your businesses actually you help coach people online. And so, as a coach who coaches people online, like you've helped people profit. Actually, you've helped people make even more money during this time. And so, um, for you, what are the things that some people are doing that's like a mistake that they shouldn't be doing during this time, and some things that they should, besides putting out content, what are some common mistakes you see people doing, besides just sitting and doing nothing in their approach?
Yeah, absolutely. And I came from a brick and mortar background. My dad was a carpet cleaner, flood restoration. My uncle owned retail stores that all got really impacted in 2008. And what I saw was that there was decisions that they could have made in hindsight, because that's always 2020, that if we were to make today would actually be super beneficial as well. So one of the first
Mm,
things that they didn't do is they didn't change up the model, how they were doing business. Right? If right now you can't sell as much as you used to, it's time to make a shift. That's what happened to me. I was in a place where I was running live events. That's how I like to build culture and community. In person is one of the best ways to do that. Yet I didn't sit down and go, man, I can't run live events. So because of that, I don't know what else to do. Like, I guess I'll just continue to try to run smaller live events, or I'll try to sell live events for the future. No, I made a pivot right away to be able to serve people in a different capacity. And when it comes to offers, right now more than ever, most people are motivated by 2 motivations. One is a toward motivation, which is very much used in a very up economy. A towards motivation is like, I want to buy my dream home, so that's why I want to build this business. Or I want to buy the dream car. Or I want 6-pack abs. Or I want the relationship of my dreams. Notice that those are all ways to speak to people that are towards. It's something in the future that they can look forward to. The problem is inside of a market, when people are unstable, they don't respond as well to that style of marketing. They don't respond as well to, well, do you want to buy your dream house right now? People are like, I don't know what's going on in the world. I don't know if I want that. Yet what they are doing is they're running away from things that could be painful. And that doesn't mean that you are being a jerk. It doesn't mean that you are marketing with scarcity style tactics that's making people fearful. It's that you're appealing to the fact that you're saving people from something. It's the difference between aspirations and a life raft. And right now, if your product or service can be positioned to people as something that helps them in this time, it's like a life raft. If you're stuck overboard, you feel like you're drowning. And if you can somehow feel that, man, I'm positioning this offer, this product or service is something that's going to keep them afloat, right? They may not want to have a 6-pack, but they definitely don't want to keep feeling bad. They don't want to be continually gaining weight in quarantine. See the difference? One's I'm trying to get away
Yeah.
from gaining weight, away marketing. I want to get away from that rather than towards marketing, which is, do you want to get a six pack while you're in quarantine? It's a little bit different right now.
Mm. So right now, you think people should position their offers as, you don't, basically telling them what you don't want, the undesired result. That's, you're saving them from that, right? Basically, you want to help people. Basically, give them an offer where they can run away from that result that they don't want. That's
Totally. And the other things are, don't use the current climate to try to sell your goods or services. A lot of people are trying to sell tons of masks right now and all these things and make a profit off of something that's so situational and very, maybe it's something that's very near and dear to certain people's hearts, right? My mom got coronavirus. I got super scared about it and things like that. You don't want to use the current climate to try to sell things and manipulate that. That's one thing. But the other thing is, a lot of people have felt, how do I actually sell my product or service or confidently market it in this time? They felt like a jerk, right? They felt that they were not being someone who was helpful by trying to sell. And that's the opposite. And one of the ways right now that everyone can shift that is through what I call a product confidence guide. And what I do is I write down, first off, what is your person that you normally would help with your product or service? What are they going through in their life right now? Like, what's the problem that they're going through that your product or service solves? And you can stem that, keep breaking that down more and more and more. It might be, well, let's say they want to lose weight. And if they don't, they're going to continually be overweight, which may lead to, maybe they don't feel as confident in themselves. They get sick more often. They're more susceptible to things. They don't ever get to do the sport that they love. Those are the problems that they're dealing with right now. The second question
Mhm.
would be, in a year or 5 years from now, they never get your product or service. What will their life be like? Probably worse
Mm.
because they never got a solution. The next step that I
Yeah.
think is one of the most important is, if they buy from other people, what's the common problem that they're running into? Because you really shouldn't be marketing your product or service if someone else can solve their problem better than you can. But there's probably something that you see
Mhm.
that's wrong. For me, I saw that there was lots of people buying courses or just a coach, and they were never getting community. They were never getting context. They were never getting personal help. They would go buy a course, which would be some of my competition, and they would get this course and they would never go through it. 80% of people never even get through I think they don't even get through phase one of it or something like that. 80% don't even open courses, something ridiculous like this. Or they would get a coach, but then outside of that, they were never surrounded by people. It's like, what if I could help people with contextual questions when they need help, so that a course doesn't do, and also get people surrounded with the community? So ask yourself, what's something that you're going to do that's different than everyone else? And then the last thing is, if people get your product or service, how will their life be different? And how will it be different in a year or 5 years? And that will give you confidence, because you'll be able to see the
Mhm.
transformation of the two types of people. And then you'll feel that there's some type of moral push, a moral obligation to get your product or service out there in the world. And if that's not the case,
Mhm.
then it's probably time to shift up that product or service so it makes a bigger impact in people's lives, so you can confidently promote it.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's interesting how you said there's a moral push. For you, I know you do masterminds and you help people. Basically, you're doing virtual masterminds now. You're helping people, you know, get their business refined. And so for you, how were you able to market that and present it in a way where people didn't feel like they're being sold to? It's just more of something they felt like it was something they needed.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Raymond. So for a long time, I had a product or service that I was just constantly trying to shove down people's throats. Right? It's what we have to do. We're trying to grow a business. We're trying to pay for our livelihood. I was married at 20, my wife was 18, and we had no financial backing. At that point, we were just let into the world with no income, no savings, no nothing. And it was time to go generate money. So it took us trying to get a product and try to sell it. And then what I noticed after a while is it burnt me out. It was something that I was losing friends. I felt like I was breaking relationships. I was burning bridges. And that's when I really got into, how can I serve people? There's a quote out there that says, it's really difficult or impossible to withdraw from a bank account that you've never made a deposit in. And I started thinking,
Mm.
how could I make deposits in people's lives, my customers, clients, by serving them, where I'm making deposits where it feels like the bank account, the social equity, the social capital is rising, so that when they invest, they still feel like they haven't spent all that money. Does that make sense? It's like I've given so much to them, that by investing the
Yeah.
money, it doesn't feel like they're investing anymore. The second thing
Mhm.
is creating the product or service to solve a need or a problem in the person's life where they go, oh my goodness, this is so much more valuable than me keeping my money and still having my problem. And when I started creating products or services based on what would be like a no brainer for people that would actually want this, because there's only a certain marketplace that would actually want that thing. And if it's communicated in a way, they're going to go, oh my gosh, I want to buy this. But no matter what, everyone in the marketplace is going to have some type of reserve to just buying from a random person. So that's where I also started focusing on how can I make deposits in hundreds, tens, hundreds, or thousands, or hundreds of thousands of people's bank accounts, right? Social equity by giving to them something that's valuable and continuing to do that, where I'm almost killing them with kindness, where finally I almost want them to just throw money at our business and say, you've been so much help. I don't know what else to do. I feel so bad for not paying you guys. And that's what I would
Mhm.
like. And so consistently serving people and then consistently making sure the offer is in their best interest. And generally, you can make the offer, your product or service, in both people's best interests. And one of the best ways to do that, I would say, is to not sell the product. This is a very important lesson you guys are going to want to get. This is an iPhone. It's actually a cracked iPhone. You can see at the bottom, it's a little bit cracked. How could I sell this iPhone for $5,000? Would anyone buy it for 5 grand? Probably not. Even it would probably only sell for what it's worth, which is whatever people will pay for it. Might be $400 because it's cracked, maybe a little bit less. I guarantee you I could sell this iPhone for 5 grand and make new iPhones not even worth buying compared to this. It wouldn't work for everyone, but it would work for my ideal market. I would say things like I would increase value rather than decreasing price, which would set me apart, especially if it doesn't cost me much more money. So imagine inside of this phone, inside the notes section, I had a sales script that's helped us close over $3 million in sales and has helped my friends close over $1 billion in sales, downloaded it to the phone. On top of that, all my mentors that I've invested money to connect with, some of the most famous people on the planet, they know that this number they will always answer. It's kind of like a bat line. Also, all of our web pages that have made us millions of dollars are also downloaded inside of the phone. And already you're seeing that for people aren't looking at the phone, they're looking at the things in the phone and what it's going to do for them. And if I were to say, all these things together about 100 grand, yet there's only one phone. So anyone who wants it right now, we're not going to even do it for 10 grand. I'm going to be selling this phone for $5,000. I have people every single time go, can I buy that phone? You want to buy a broken iPhone for
Mhm.
5 grand? That's called selling a product. Selling a
Mhm.
transformation and increasing value is when you can stuff things inside of it that make the product even more valuable, that makes the price lower. They say that price is only a problem when the value is a mystery.
Mhm.
If the value of the product is a mystery, or it's just the same as everyone else, a toilet bowl, brush, an iPhone will only sell for what an iPhone's worth. But you increase
Mhm.
value that comes with the iPhone, and all of a sudden I can sell a broken iPhone for $5,000 and there's no competition. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
That's really valuable insights, and I think you also you're in the fitness industry, or that's how you started off with health and helping people become healthy, especially businessmen, because even your own father, when business didn't go well and everything was going downhill, he kind of the first thing that left was his health, right? And his health started deteriorating, and so that's why the focus for BDB, Billion Dollar Brotherhood, was to focus on the health. And so, I know that you taught in one of your classes that you sold a coaching program for $7,500, even though there's more technically qualified coaches who have certificates and degrees and are Olympians, but you're charging more than them. So can you explain, how you were able to do that and how you were able to sell that to somebody, like to the first person?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So when I first got into health and fitness industry, I had lost 60 pounds. And one of the first things that I thought of was that my story didn't matter. And as I started telling my story, people started caring. They started going, oh my gosh, you lost weight, so I can connect with that. But at the end of the day, I was still only 150 pounds. I wasn't as shredded as all these people. I didn't have all the certifications. I hadn't been to college and gone to nutrition school and all these different things. I wasn't a personal trainer. Yet I had firsthand experience of losing weight, and I had done unaccredited studies and knew that I could create a transformation with people. Yet when I went on Instagram or Facebook, my bio wasn't really anything. I hadn't made doing it. I hadn't affected that many people. And so one of the first things that I did is I went out there and I created case studies. I did stuff for free and had people implement my system to be able to get a result for them. Because at that point, the results are speaking, right? Facts tell, stories sell. Their story was going to sell it. My story sold it. But even after that, there was a million people that had transformation photos. There was a million people that like fit tees that would literally hire people like my wife who was really fit, and they would fake that her transformation came from some fit tee. How could I ever somehow compete with those people, or bodybuilders, or all these things? And maybe you feel that same way too. If someone's in an industry where there's people that are Goliaths, they're the best in the world, and you feel like you can help people, but how are they going to see that? One of the first things that I did was I stopped doing what everyone else was doing. I stopped trying to sell a $37 ebook or a $27 membership. And I started thinking, what if I could just work with less people, make more money, but give them more than they ever got from anyone else? Because one of the common things of all these big influencers is they can never get back to anyone. So I started thinking, well, what if I have 30 people pay me 10 grand? Like that would be 300 grand. Or what if I had 60 people pay me 5 grand? That would be so much simpler. But why would they pay me $5,000? Well, what's the common problem in the health industry? Well, the average person goes through 5 different diets every single year, and 97% of them or so end up gaining more weight at the end of the year than what they had before. So very few people stick to a diet. So I started thinking, well, what if I started framing my personal journey differently, where when people invest in a $100 program or gym membership or personal trainer and they get fit and then they gain weight again, that's actually costing them money. It didn't give them a result. So I started asking people, if I were to make a program for $300, but you had a 97% chance of being overweight again, or if I made a program for $3,000, but it guaranteed that you'd get fit and continue to stay fit. They're like, oh, I'd easily pay 3,000 over 300. Interesting. So one of the ways that we did it first off is called a risk reversal. I noticed people would invest more if they had a guaranteed result. And if they didn't get the result, it'd be on us. And so what we did is we created guaranteed results, risk reversal. I took the risk on myself. I've even done this in the future or other programs I've done since then, that if people invest $10,000, if at the end of the year they don't make substantial progress, well, we give them the $10,000 back plus 8% interest, which is about what they would get in an amazing investment. Why do we do that? Because we want to make sure that we get people in the door. And we notice if we get people in the door, we can provide an amazing service. So we started adding things to our program that seemed very valuable to the person. It's called perceived value. So you want people that are willing and able. So willing is that they want the product, they want the transformation that you provide, the product or service that you have, and able, they have the money. So if I were to market to Justin Bieber of the world a health transformation, it may be worth $10,000 or $50,000 to him easily, because he wants it and the money's nothing. And so I started targeting people that had a high value and would invest high dollars into the product or service that we had, which was super big for me, willing and able. Then on top of that, what would be things that would make them feel like the product is even more valuable that doesn't necessarily increase my cost? So I started adding things like 24/7 support. I started adding travel meal plans every time they traveled. I started adding blood work being done in custom plans based on that did take more work, but it only cost me a few hundred extra dollars. That few hundred extra dollars differentiated me from everyone else, because they felt like, wow, where else can I get a custom plan that's based on my blood work? Like that seems so valuable. And all of a sudden we took the product from $3,000 to $7,500 very, very quickly, even though it only raised our price, personally, my cost, by a couple $100s. So what can you add to the product or service that extremely increases value, that doesn't massively increase cost, that makes your client actually see it way more valuable? Because it doesn't matter what you see, it matters what they see. And we dog trainer, dog trainer was trained $25 a session. Afterwards, they would have another $125 session if they wanted, optional, to be able to get their dog around other dogs. And then they would pay if they needed to come back. Well, my dog trainer was so good that he didn't normally go back. So he felt like he was getting paid less for being good. He might as well be bad dog trainer, get paid more. So I said, what if we bundle this all together? They get all these things, $500. which is way more money than what he's making if he sold everything, but we guaranteed the transformation. So even if you have to go back twice, it still is more money. And all of a sudden, people saw more
Wow.
value in the guaranteed transformation. Their dog was going to be fixed sooner, and they got all these other benefits. They got a collar, they got a leash, and they didn't cost him hardly anything. All of a sudden, we were able to take his company from $12,000 a month dog training, which is about zero profit, to now $70,000 a month.
Wow. So you pretty much 5x'd their profit just by
And that's
just
not
through
a
the
common
offering.
thing. Again, he was an action taker. He took action. He had a great idea, great work ethic, and most people won't take action. Yet, when you do
Mhm.
take action on the right plans, it does create big results like that.
Awesome. And so, I think for a lot of people, they are kind of like you said, like lost, and they, you said put out your content so more people find out about you. Where, and you said on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, for you, where do you find the most return on investment for you, like in terms of just having people view your stuff? Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks, Nick, for hopping on the call. Really appreciate everything that you shared with us. And you guys can check him out on Instagram at Nicholas Barely, the Billion Dollar Brotherhood, as was featured here. And this was the highlight of today's Success Spotlight. And I want to thank you, Nick, again for hopping on the show today.